Hi everyone, I'm Brianna and welcome to Roll Initiative. Today we're going to be talking about higher and lower stats in D&D and how that can affect your character and some different ways that you can play characters with those stats. So, let's get started. So the first thing we need to think about is how do the different abilities affect your character? And the three physical abilities show us what your character maybe looks a bit like and what they're physically capable of, as they describe your character's body, whether they're strong, whether they're smaller or more agile, or whether they're really healthy, resilient, or whether they're quite frail. Now, the other three abilities are intellectual: intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. And the best way that I have heard this explained is that intelligence means knowing tomatoes are fruit, wisdom is knowing it still doesn't belong in a fruit salad, and charisma is convincing people that tomatoes do go in a fruit salad. Though low intelligence means that you don't know things that others might, whereas high intelligence means that you know things that others might not. Low wisdom, you don't notice things that others might, whereas high wisdom, you will notice things that others might not. And as for charisma, I think it's just really good to realize that having high charisma doesn't have to meet the standard of looking good, because your charisma score doesn't equal your looks. If you have a low charisma score, that doesn't mean your character has to be ugly. Charisma is based on your personality, your ability to convince people of things. Charisma doesn't rely on looks, but that doesn't mean that looks are unrelated, because you can have a character who's not very charismatic, but can get away with a decent charisma score because they're very good looking. Because it can help out in a lot of situations where charisma is helpful, such as trying to convince someone to do you a favor. I think wisdom is very much street smarts, and intelligence is very much book smarts. And I think a really good way to highlight that is that high wisdom might be really good at finding clues, but not really knowing what they mean. And intelligence might be really bad at actually finding the clues, but they're really good at knowing what they mean. And as an ability score of 10 to 11 is the normal human average, it can be really hard to play a character with really high intelligence or wisdom. And while some people are that smart, you shouldn't have to be to play the type of character that you want. And I think the best way to play a character that's smarter than you is to talk to your DM, because they literally know everything that happens in the world. So if you can ask them if there's anything about the situation that their character would know, then your DM might have some information for you. Or you can make an intelligence or wisdom check to see what sort of information you can find. And if you have a character who has a really good memory, but you don't, then take notes. That will act as your character's memory. If you take lots of notes, then you'll be able to see all the things that your character noticed or things that you thought were important. There are many different levels of intelligence and many different ways to be smart. Someone can be a literal rocket scientist, and that doesn't mean they'll make a good doctor. And you can play a wizard who isn't very smart, but is still great at casting spells, because they can have really high intelligence, which will make them really good at casting magic, their own field. And they can have really low wisdom, which might mean that they have terrible judgment. They're really smart and intelligent and can cast a lot of spells really well, but they have terrible survival skills. It's the perfect example of how can someone be so smart yet so stupid at the same time. And you can work with these two different types of smart and figure out what different fields they're smart in. Just because you're intelligent doesn't mean that you have to be incredibly knowledgeable on all things. You can be incredibly smart in a certain field and then, well, a stereotypical barbarian in others. But there we go, that's the end of this video, and I really hope it was helpful to you. And if you enjoyed it, then I'd be really grateful if you'd consider giving it a like or maybe even subscribing to my channel. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.